So to give you an example of how theory guides research, we're going to be reviewing Harlow's experiment where he looked at how monkeys formed an attachment to a surrogate mother, right? The existing study, or not study, the existing theory at the time was that infants formed attachment with adults because adults provided sustenance. They met the basic needs of the child that helped them survive. Food, shelter, protection. This theory was known as a cupboard theory, right? So the idea was that the child, so a cupboard, that's where you would find the food, right? That's where you could get food from. So the adult providing the food was the one that could provide protection, that could help that infant survive, and that's why they believed this attachment formed between the infant and the parent. Then Harlow came up with a different point of view, a theory that, well, maybe it's not this that leads to forming attachment, but maybe it has to do more with some social emotional aspect, the comfort provided by the parents to the child, right? So that was known as is known as contact comfort theory, right? So now you have two competing theories. You have this older theory that attachment forms because the parents provide protection and basic needs for the infant, and this new theory that no, that's not how attachment forms. Attachment forms because of the social emotional aspect, this contact and comfort between the adults and the infant. So to test this, Harlow designed a study where he included Rhesus monkeys and surrogate mothers. And these surrogate mothers, there was two, right? So there was two. And one surrogate mother had food. That's all it had. It was wire mesh, so very cold. Provided food, while the other one provided comfort. It was wrapped in a cloth, terry cloth to be specific. So it was warmer. It provided more of that contact comfort that Harlow was speaking about. So the idea was, well, let's see which surrogate mother the infant rhesus monkeys prefer. Where do they spend most of their time? Now, think about this. If the cupboard theory is correct, well, then these monkeys should be spending more time with the mother that provides the food. If this new theory, contact comfort theory, is correct, well, then the rhesus monkey should be spending more time with the surrogate mother, the wire mesh mother wrapped in this cloth, right? It provides some comfort. After doing the study, Harlow found that the rhesus monkeys actually did spend more time with the terry cloth mother. They did go to eat with the other mother, right? You'll see a video of this that I'm uploading that I provided. They did go eat, but then they went back to the other mother wrapped in the cloth and spent most of their time with that mother, right? So they would go eat, then come back and spend most of their time in this warm, fuzzy mother, supporting the idea that there is something to the socio-emotional, the contact that's important to forming this attachment between the infant and the mother, and challenging the old standing theory that providing these basic needs guided attachment alone. Okay, so I wanted to make sure I made this as clear as possible. So I'm going to go through the example we just reviewed and connect it to the theory data cycle. So when discussing theory, we're thinking about how something works, how this phenomena functions within humans. So attachment, right? We were reviewing how attachment, how these bonds develop between an infant and the parent. So there's two competing theories. One theory argued that it's about keeping the child alive, the other theory was, no, it's more than that. It has to do with contact, it has to do with comfort, right? So the theory I focused on was contact comfort theory, right? This idea that there's something about the social emotional bond that helps form attachment between an infant and an adult. So that's the theory, right? Then you had a research question. Well, okay, so if this is true, right, that there's something about contact that helps form this attachment, um, well, let me think about a research question regarding how, like, what would this look like, right? Then Harlow came up with the idea of, well, let's look at this within primates, right, within rhesus monkeys. And when he came up with this idea, he had to think about the design. Okay, so if I'm going to do this with rhesus monkeys, if I'm going to look at this, test this theory out, what would the actual research design look like? And that's when you would bring in, this is where you would think about the actual rhesus monkeys, or not the confederate mothers, right, but the surrogate mothers. You have the wire mesh mother, you have the terry cloth mother, and let's see where the monkey, the rhesus monkey, spends most of its time, right? If it supports Harlow's theory, then this monkey should spend most of the time with a terry cloth mother in comparison to the wire mesh mother, right? So that's how the study was designed to test this theory out. You had this research question regarding, well, how does this look like in rhesus monkeys? Can we test this out? And then you had the hypothesis. So the hypothesis is what you predict happening, the outcomes of this specific study. So now that you've designed the study, right? You have two mothers. One provides food. One provides comfort. Where do you expect the rhesus monkey to spend most of its time? Now, because Harlow had a specific point of view, specific theory that was informing his way of thinking, he hypothesized that the rhesus monkeys would spend most of their time with a terry cloth mother, right? This is what he expected, the hypothesis, different from theory. Theory, in this situation, is the idea that, well, the attachment bonds between an infant and a parent are related to the contact and comfort that the parents give to the infant. That's a theory. The hypothesis is focused only on this research study once you've designed it, and what do you expect to find specifically in this research study? Now the data, that's the outcome of your experiment. This data can either support your theory or challenge it, negate the theory, right? Provide evidence against the theory. So depending on what you find, you might go back to the research design or even the research question phase and rethink how you're designing this experiment. Or you might decide, well, maybe this data doesn't support my theory. In this case, the findings supported the contact comfort theory, right? So you have these different stages. You have the theory, this idea about how some phenomena within, in the case of humans, and in this case, child development, some idea about how attachment forms. How does it form? Where does it come from? How does it function, right? So you have some idea of what's guiding this phenomenon within the psychological domain, at least in our case. Then you come up with a research question. Well, okay, if this is a theory, then what would this look like in primates? Then you design a study to test this. Then you hypothesize what you expect to find in that study. Then you have your data that either supports your theory or challenges your theory.